Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the virtual breakfast sessions. I'm Larry Sashin, and today we have a real treat for you. A real treat for you. We're going to do coffee with Mike Kurtz of Mike's Hot Honey. But before we do that, let me thank the people who are paying our bills. Number one on our list is Ed Flanagan and the Era Group. Listen, we all work very, very hard for our money. And if you're getting product in the one door and they hand you a receipt and you look at the invoice and then you look at the number of boxes and put it into inventory, you're losing money. You have to check these things. You have to make sure that you're getting exactly what you're paying for. And if you need help with that, call Ed Flanagan in the Era Group. Their people will sift through all your invoices, check it to your product that you're getting, and make sure you're getting it for the price you agreed to. And if the things are out of whack, they'll give you somebody else that you might go and check out. So call Ed Flanagan in the Era Group. Back to our show. Coffee with Mike Kurtz of Mike's Hot Honey. Listen, back in 1971. There was a song, "When you're hot, and when you're not, you're not." Well, today we have a guy who's been thinking hot since 2004. And with that segue, Mike, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, thank you, Larry and Fred, for having me. I'm Mike Kurtz. I'm the founder of Mike's Hot Honey. We are a brand that has existed since 2004, but really just in business since 2010. And I was a one-man operation for the first 5 years of that. So it's been a long haul for me. But yeah, Mike's Hot Honey. Honey infused with chili peppers. It's a multi-purpose condiment that I launched out of a pizzeria in Greenpoint, Brooklyn in 2010.
Okay. All right. Fred, say hi.
Fred Clashman, Total Food Service editor and publisher. Looking forward to talking to a truly inspirational guy in our business. Amazing.
Oh, yes.
Thanks, Fred.
The man just shocked us with numbers, and he will shock you with numbers also. So, honey's been around for as long as there's been bees, and chili peppers have been around. What made you decide that they're a good combination?
Yeah, two of nature's most unique and wonderful ingredients. I was inspired by an experience I had as a college student in Brazil. My parents met in Brazil. My dad was there in the Peace Corps. I studied Portuguese in college. I was a foreign student at a university in Brazil. And on a weekend trip to a national park, um, we had been hiking in this park for about 4 or 5 days, camping, eating meals over the campfire. On the last day of the hike, we descended into this little valley and we found a pizzeria there that had jars of honey with chili peppers steeping in the honey. And they had it on the tables for drizzling on pizza. And it's not a Brazilian thing. The owner of the pizzeria, I believe, is from Switzerland. So it wasn't something you would commonly see in Brazil. It was just sort of like a random run-in with this pizzeria and this flavor combination. And I tried the honey with the chili peppers on a slice of pizza, and just blew me away. And I kept on thinking about that flavor profile, the sweet floral notes of the honey, the heat from the chili peppers, how it all combined with the savory notes from the pizza, and just how delicious that was. And I got back to the States a year later and started experimenting with honey chili pepper infusions my senior year of college, and came up with the recipe, the name, and really just started making it as a hobby. And that was 2004. So that was the beginning.
Wow.
My roommate walked into the apartment. I remember he came in and I was drizzling the first bottle of Mike's Hot Honey on a slice of pizza that I had gotten from our local pizza shop. He said, "What is that?" I said, "It's Mike's Hot Honey." First words out of my mouth, and the name just stuck.
Love it.
Love market research.
You know what though? I think it's true though. Sometimes it's like the thing that comes out first is the most pure, and it's like
Yeah.
I guess it worked.
I'll tell you a funny story about the name. You mentioned Paulie G, so Mike's Hot Honey was a hobby for 6 or 7 years, and then my passion for pizza led me to Paulie G's, and I met Paulie when he first opened the pizzeria in 2010, his original wood-fired pizzeria, and he had that beautiful wood-burning oven from Naples, and I was totally fascinated by the oven and his process and his dough recipe, and he invited me to become an apprentice there. So I started working in the pizzeria, learning how to work the oven, learning how to stretch the dough, making pies. Eventually, I got fast enough that he put me on a dinner shift, and I brought in my honey friend to try, and he liked it and asked me to make it for the restaurant. So we started putting it on the pizzas. So where the pizzas are made, they call it the pizza theater because it's open to the floor of the restaurant. So you could see people's reactions to tasting it. Well, one night there was this older lady that came in, and she had the Hellboy, which was the hot soppressata pie with Mike's Hot Honey on it. And she took a bite of it and she started complaining, "Why is it so hot?" And she thought that hot honey meant it was temperature hot, not hot as in chili peppers. Yeah.
And there was nothing at all in the name Hellboy that clued her in at all that it might be hot.
So at that point, Paulie comes up to me after the shift and he says, "Look, I think we got to change the name because people just don't know. Like they don't know that it's they think it's temperature hot. So you can't be reactive to just one person, And also, Mike's Hot Honey at that point already existed for almost 7 years. So I was like, it's set in stone. Like it's alliteration. It's not Mike's Spicy Honey. It's Mike's Hot Honey."
Yeah.
But he did try to get me to change the name. So, yeah, thankfully that didn't happen.
Yes. So let's put this in perspective right now. I gave you a number before, which I looked up and I was saying, wow. Tell the audience the market share. How much hot honey are you selling?
Last year, we did about close to 70 million in sales.
Wow.
And we're on track for some big growth again this year.
So what led to leaving your illustrious career as a pizza maker and a full-time sauce and honey maker? How did that all come about?
Yeah, I worked in the music business before I started my honey business. I've been making Mike's Hot Honey as a hobby, but I was pursuing a career in the music business. That's my family. My dad was a jazz saxophonist. My grandparents were singers, and I'm a music guy. Yep. And I got hired at a record label out of college, and I was in record sales, selling CDs. So I caught the very tail end of the sort of golden age of the music business. And then there was that weird transition period where CDs went away, the record stores closed, but streaming hadn't really taken off yet. So a lot of people were out of work in the industry. People weren't quite sure where things were going. I was looking around thinking, man, like I gotta get into something that can't be downloaded from the internet for free, and I had been thinking about my honey. I was like, well, people always have to eat, honey and chili peppers are truly universal flavors. And so I kept on thinking about it and really, when I launched it in the pizzeria, it was a slow build. I started selling bottles off the bar. I got a bunch of press, but I didn't have production, so I was making it myself the first 5 years. It took me a while to scale up production. But I didn't start drawing a salary from the business until probably like 3.5 years in. Everything that I made in those early years got reinvested into the business. Finally, 3.5 years in, I could start drawing a salary. I quit my job at the pizzeria and started doing it full time. But I kept the shift at the restaurant as almost like a host for Monday night. I was kind of like the general manager. So I would host people. Monday night is industry night in restaurants in New York. So you host people from other restaurants who come in, your friends come in, take care of people, making sure the tables are all having a good time. And I met a lot of people that way and built a lot of relationships that are still impactful for the business today. But yeah, it took me a good close to 4 years before I started actually drawing a salary.
And did all those folks, was the conversation, hey, try this honey in your kitchen? Is that type of, like, where did the oomph come from?
I mean, it's just like, I think like hospitality goes a long way in relationship building, and everybody likes pizza and wine, so it's a
Yep.
pretty easy way to host people. And so I think really it was just like, you have this cool venue, this beautiful venue that was built out by Evan and Oliver Hasselgrave, these two brothers who built the original Pauly G's location. They had this incredible oven. Wood-fired pizza at the time was, fairly new to New York. There weren't that many places doing it.
Right.
And the pies coming out of the oven were great. And I just like hosting people. I built a lot of relationships that way. And I had this incredible vehicle for the product where people got to taste Mike's Hot Honey on these great pies, and they had these memorable experiences, and it laid the blueprint for how we grew the business after that, because I saw the power of a single restaurant, what that could do for a brand, and how impactful that could be, and how impactful it is for when you're a brand, you have somebody come into a restaurant, have a fantastic experience with your product. They see it on the menu, they taste it. It's a memory that's ingrained in their head, and then the next time they see you on the shelf at the supermarket, they're pulling you off the shelf. So, seeing the impact from a single restaurant, I realized, okay, like, we build a network of these pizzerias around the country. All of these pizzerias can be beacons for the brand in their respective markets, and that's really how we built the business.
Okay, I have a question about building that business. There is a point with every successful entrepreneur hits, and it's usually the decision made at that time is the life or death of that business. When the beautiful thing about entrepreneurs, I want to do it myself. I want to do it myself. I want to do it myself. Eventually, you do such a good job that you can't do it by yourself, that you have to reach out and get other people. Where was that decision with you, and how did you go about putting together an organization that is going to support $70 million worth of product going out the door?
Yeah. Well, I was overexposed in the first 5 years in terms of press and demand, and I couldn't keep up with demand because I didn't have a large scale production, and I couldn't build stock and work with distributors. So the biggest inflection point for me was when I was able to scale up to larger scale manufacturing. I had been striking out with all these honey packers, trying to find somebody to help me scale up my business, and many of them didn't want to mess with me because they were worried about cross contamination of chili pepper on a pure honey line. So I wasn't big enough for them to take a risk on me. And then finally, I got introduced to this guy, Grant Stiles, who somebody who told me about him said, he's a little crazy, but he might just be crazy enough to give you a shot and work with you. And I went out to see him at in his packing line in Jersey. And when I got there, it was in his garage attached to his house.
Wow.
And I was like, this must be the wrong place. But he told me, I assure you, he gave me his word. He said, I assure you, we do a lot of production out of this tiny space. And a few years later, maybe less than a few years, might have been a year or two after that, we got our first Walmart order for like 4,000 stores, and he filled it 2 weeks early out of that same garage. And now he's got a huge stainless steel, beautiful HACCP certified production line down the street that he's built. And we still work with him today. But I think like that was the biggest inflection point. And then, nobody has background in selling hot honey. It's just like you hire people who you think share your values, who are smart people, who know how to make genuine connections with operators. And that was like the formula. It's like build a team of people who know how to connect with folks in a genuine way. Like I had an experience early on where I met Pat LaFrida, and everybody knows Pat in the meat business, and especially if you're in the New York metro area, one of the biggest, best meat purveyors in the area. And I asked him, like, what his day to day was like, and he said, I'm visiting customers 6 nights a week, and he's in their restaurants eating their food, and he gives out his personal cell phone to so many of those people, and it's like he kind of planted a seed with me in that, like, you got to show up in person, like, and so I did that a lot myself. And then when it became too much, we started building out a team. And if you look at our food service business, people ask you how you built it. It's like, there's no shortcut to building that. Like that's years of pounding the pavement, showing up in person, meeting not only the owner, but the pizza makers behind the counter, the dishwashers, meeting the people who operate those restaurants from the owner all the way down, and making sure those people feel seen and recognized for the great work that they're doing. And that's really the key, is like just being genuine and showing up in person to these places. Because you can send emails, but who wants another email?
Right.
We all have enough email. Like it almost is meaningless now, because it's like there's just so much of it. You got to show up in person and build a real connection with people. And so that's how the food service business really got built, was through genuine connections, starting in pizzerias. And I tried to foster a culture of I'm a pizza lover. So I try to foster that culture with our team and teach people about pizza. And, they talk about the freshman 15, your freshman year of college, you gain 15 pounds. Ask my staff how much weight they gain once they join Mike's Hot Honey.
Love it.
Might be more
That's the other thing. When you go to a trade show and you visit with your team, it's the most eclectic team in the industry. I mean, there's just all kinds of folks. The most non-corporate, you'd never in a million years guess. It makes it fun.
I think people can feel when a brand is having a good time.
Yeah.
They feel that energy and they want to be a part of that. And so you try to lead with hospitality. You try to, show people a good time, make them feel good. And they want to be a part of that community. So that's it. It's not rocket science.
Okay. So wait a second.
Hold on a second. So you mentioned Walmart. What about the retail part of the world? Has that become an important part of what you do? And how are you taking what you learn? Go ahead.
Yeah. So, with retail, the honey aisle had been a very sleepy part of the store for a very long time, with almost no innovation. It had just been exactly the same product selection for decades. And we came in and we brought this new innovation to the honey aisle, where all of a sudden, if you have 50 pure honeys on the shelf, you take one off and you put our product on the shelf in that set. All of a sudden, you're drawing customers in from condiments, from hot sauces, from other parts of the store, and you're raising the overall revenue of the set. So savvy buyers who understood that we were creating incremental value for their honey set started slotting us and giving us shelf space. But it took a long time. It started with independent cheese shops, butcher shops, the little spots. I worked with Murray Cheese when it was one location. I used to hand deliver cases to their warehouse in Long Island City. Campbell Cheese, Bedford Cheese Shop, all these like great independent purveyors in New York. Now, of course, Murray's Cheese is gigantic and owned by Kroger.
Right.
But you build those relationships, and then what I recognized was that these grocery buyers from the big chains, from Kroger, Publix, Walmart, they're all poaching products from independent retailers. So if they're going into a place like Murray's Cheese and looking at their product selection there, and then they see you a couple more times at some other great independent grocers, they're going to recognize this is a product we probably need to stock on our shelves. So you start with the independents, and then it trickles down to the big box stores. And the food service is the marketing engine that drives awareness, so that when people see it on the shelf, they recognize what the product is because they had it at this spot or that spot and they had a great experience. So it kind of all feeds into itself. It's like retail helps food service helps retail. The business is split almost 50-50 in terms of revenue. Sometimes food service outsells retail in certain months. I think it's about 60% retail, 40% food service now, but big business on Amazon as well. But like, what's interesting about building a grocery brand is, like, you look at a clothing brand like Tommy Hilfiger, for example.
Yeah.
How many points of sale are there for that brand? You got Tommy stores, and then you got places like Macy's and like these big department stores. But it's not that many points of distribution compared to a grocery product that can live in almost any grocery store in the country. C-stores, on restaurant menus, you have thousands and thousands and thousands of points of distribution. So it's in some ways it's easier to build a brand with that many points of distribution than a clothing brand where you have far fewer points of distribution and fewer opportunities to sell product or expose people to your brand. So I think grocery is actually like a sneaky big way to build a brand, because it's a billboard for your brand on the shelf, and whether or not people are buying it, they're still seeing it,
So does that mean that, many small brands face the following: you got to pay X amount in slotting allowances in order to get your product on the shelves. Somehow you manage to manipulate yourself around this, etc. Is that doable? Can that be accomplished?
Yeah, I mean, we started in food service, and food service drove demand for retail. So
Okay.
like, food service drove exposure, drove press, which drove demand for the product at retail. And I think, like, you're obviously not going. No one's putting you on shelf unless they already know there's demand for the product. Like,
Right.
it's valuable real estate. So like, they need to know that your product's going to move and that you've got certain velocity numbers. So you need to demonstrate that. And I think, like, in our case, when we launched in retail, we created a formula for success in the New York metro area. And then once that was established, we knew we could roll that out to other markets. But really, underneath all of that was this foundation of great food service partners, great independent pizzerias that became beacons for the brand, that drove awareness in their respective markets. And those are free marketing engines.
Yeah.
They're revenue drivers on the food service side, but they're also marketing engines for the brand that help drive velocity at retail in their respective markets. So we made sure we weren't going to roll out to a retail market without having food service humming there first.
Okay.
So hold on a sec, Larry. So what role do the Cisco US Foods of the world and your distribution relationships play in growing a brand?
I mean, it's a huge role. Like, they're the boots on the ground, and in our case, we spent a lot of time, our food service team has gone out to opcos all over the country with these distributors, educating those sales teams how to sell the product, the most common food pairings, and teaching these folks how to communicate the benefits of the product and the brand to restaurants. And it's like, we're not only teaching them the pairings, but we're also, we want to drive brand awareness. We want menu mentions. We want call outs on the menu. We know that our brand is something that brings value. And so if a customer is buying our product, they should also be calling us out by name on the menu. And so we spend a lot of time educating the reps at various distributors on how to position the brand and the food pairings that we know are crowd pleasers. And so they've been huge partners for us. We could have never grown the business without those distributors and those reps who are really on the ground. And I mean, we've done countless, our team has done, countless ride-alongs with these reps where it's like
Mm-hmm.
a food service rep from our team is in the car with a Cisco rep or a US Foods rep or whoever, and they're making the rounds, visiting those customers, showing face with
Yeah.
the chefs, and just showing up. It's like, I don't know why people, it's really not that much more complicated than that. It's like, show up in person with your product
Press the
and you're
flesh.
gonna make a sale. Like it's an old
Well,
school way
because
of doing
we got
business,
lost
but
in we got lost in technology. That's why we assume everything can be eaten by technology now.
Yeah.
yeah, just showing up makes a big difference. And it's also not just showing up once, it's showing up over and over again,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
being consistent, and it's like, and customers become your friends, and like they become your, it's funny, you spend so much time with these people, and I look at my friend group, it's a lot of them were started out as customers, they became some
Mm.
of my best friends.
That's it. That's it. Listen, time is our enemy. And before we have to go, I want to touch on one thing before we go, and then we'll be back to do our goodbyes. But Mike, we know how you started. We knew how you grow. We know where you are. What could you see in the future?
Well, we just launched a new simple syrup for food service, which should make it much easier for bars or coffee shops to incorporate our flavor into beverages. We realized that it was difficult, especially for multi-unit chains, to make their own simple syrup with our core products. So we just launched a simple syrup, makes it super easy for folks to use it in a margarita or a latte, and we think that's going to unlock a whole new area of business for the brand. Beyond that, we are going to keep on plugging away with our core. We still feel like there's a ton of space out there to grow with just the core product. People are always asking, when are you coming out with new flavors? When are you doing this and that? It's like, there's power in doing one thing really well,
Mm-hmm.
focusing on making a great product and servicing your customers and making sure they have the support to have success with the brand. So, I think you'll see a lot more of the core product, and then of course some growth with the simple syrup.
I agree with you. Hellman's ketchup doesn't work for me, and I think you built a name brand that is powerful. But like I said before, time is our enemy. And before we start saying our goodbyes, and that Mike, we want that last bit of information for you that the people should know when maybe they've got a product they want to launch. But before we do that, we have to thank Ed Flanagan and the Era Group. Listen, we all know we pay too much for our employees' taxes, and if you want to be able to claw some of that back, call Ed Flanagan in the Era Group. Their 125 cafeteria plan, designed by the IRS, by the way, will help you gather back some of that money that you paid for your employee taxes. That's Ed Flanagan in the Era Group. Mike, thanks for being here with us today. We really appreciate you blowing our minds with the scope of what a college kid could think of while he's going on a trip and eating pizza. I mean, this is a Hollywood type of thing. Um, I was eating pizza in Brazil and ... I mean,
Well,
it
people
is.
don't realize that Sao Paulo has more pizzerias than any city in the world.
It's true, huge pizza
Yeah,
market.
people don't realize that.
Yeah, I hardly ever go there for pizza.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. But Mike, um, give us that one bit of information, that piece of information that if you have a product and you want to start working on it, what do you do? What's that first step?
I think a lot of people, they tinker away in their own house or they're in their own head, tinkering away, formulating a business plan. I think there's a lot of power in just launching something that's very raw and letting the feedback that you get drive the decisions around product development. So, like, instead of just trying to perfect something and then launch it, put something that is imperfect out and listen to the feedback. You know, I had the advantage of being in Paulie G's and being a pizza guy and having that experience where I could see people's reactions to tasting the product. But you need like a way to get feedback around whatever you're developing. And, you know, instead of waiting and waiting and waiting until you think you have the perfect thing, just put whatever you have out into the market, listen, get some feedback, try to take your own prejudice out of it and just listen to the feedback, process it. And you're nimble, you're small, adjust and keep moving. But yeah, don't wait to launch it until you have the perfect product, because it's perfect to you, but it might not be perfect to somebody else. So.
Yep. Mike, thank you. Fred, anything to say?
Yeah, somebody's mom and dad got it right, boy. This guy is something else. I mean, this is to listen and have something to share something like this. Can't thank you enough, Mike, for doing that.
Thank you, Larry and Fred. I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome.
Okay, well, everybody, we're going to be back again. We got another show being taped tomorrow. So listen, look for us on Spotify. Look for us on Apple Podcasts. And if you want to watch us, we're on YouTube. So everybody, I only have 2 more things to say. Everybody, stay positive, test negative, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.